his mother was very introverted. You know, in Cub Scouting, you have a pack meeting every month.
Excuse me, you were the pack leader.
She was the pack.
See, now that was
I
very,
was
that's
that mother.
very interesting.
Mildred Young and I, but Mildred Young was my assistant, but we used to have it here in the basement. And you have a pack meeting where they get their awards. They work for the Bear Award, the Wolf Award, you know, that kind of thing. And the mother, or the parent, is supposed to come and pin the award on at our pack meeting. They never showed up. I pinned it on him every single time.
The only time he ever had a birthday
And
party.
the only time he had a birthday party was
she.
in my den. You know, he was bitter. But he turned out to be fine.
That's good. Well,
Anyway, I was the chairman of the den committee, and then later when Jerry went into scouting, it was a scout troop run by the Dayton Church.
By Presbyterian.
The original Cub Scout den was sponsored by the PTA of the Dayton school, of course, with poinsettias help. But then so the Dayton Church needed somebody to run the Explorer.
Nobody
Scouts.
wanted to do it, so they volunteered.
So they, I got it. And
well, you were a good example.
well,
Huh?
I took. Well, it was
It's a good
interesting.
example.
I enjoyed it. We took kids. We had a friend of ours who was a spelunker. You know, so he had some caves, interesting caves. We took the kids into caves.
Is that
We took them.
Bob Welch?
Bob Welch, yeah. Then we took them hiking on the Appalachian Trail. And then one year I had, they send Explorer Scouts out to in New Mexico to film on the Philmont Ranch. So I was I took a group of kids from Middlesex County, spent a couple of months out in the wilds. It was an interesting trip. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that I did fight a lot here. And when I got to college, I went to Rutgers. After high school, I was still bitter. So they had a boxing, you know, they had at the Bureau of Boxing, so I won the intramural heavyweight championships. Right, I had been trained a lot down here. And then I was on the boxing team for a while. And I got to know more kids, and I wasn't as bitter as I used to be, so I didn't box in my senior year. I played lacrosse. It was I remember one time came back to the high school, but when I was a junior in college at Rutgers, and I met Millie, and I asked her if the bus had come yet. I was going to go home with the bus. That's when we got to know each other, because she giggled, and so it was very friendly. Became very friendly. But anyway, after we went, I finished college. At the time that I got a job in Washington, D.C., and we got married. I finished in 1940, and we got married soon after that. And we lived in Washington for a while. And then I went to work for Seagram's Distillers. They had a company called Carstairs near Calvert, near Baltimore, and they had a policy of hiring through all the chemical operations, in the plant, and then I was a supervisor, and then they sent us to Kentucky. Where in Kentucky?
Well,
Louisville.
Jerry was born in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's right.
And then from there we moved.
We went to.
You know, Dave would come home on Friday and he'd say, "We have to be in Louisville on Monday."
They moved to Serrano.
Nothing's changed.
But they packed everything. You know, at the time it was during the war, and rubber was quite scarce. And Dave had a pair of moccasins that had rubber soles, and you know. So I told my neighbor, I put them out in the hall, that when the man comes around to collect these things, you know, to give it to him. When I get to Louisville, there are the rubber moccasins.
Well,
They
they're very
packed
thorough.
everything.
Yeah, and they put us up in the Brown Hotel, and then we found a apartment to live, not far from the Louisville racetrack, because
Kentucky Derby.
when the Kentucky Derby was on, a lot of traffic on our road. Then they moved me to Cynthiana, Kentucky, and then I was I had been deferred most of the time because I was working as a chemical engineer for an industry that was, we used to, during the war, we were making industrial alcohol, which was being used for manufacture smokeless powder, butadiene. But I felt all my friends were in the Army. I was crazy. So I wrote a letter to personnel and asked them not to defer me the next time. And so I went to the Army, and we came back. I came back.
So we had in order to get rid of everything, we had a big auction in Cynthiana. We had an auction, and at that time, things were scarce, like no refrigerators
Right.
and no washing machine. Well, I had bought a refrigerator secondhand with the motor on the top for $35. And then when I spoke to the auctioneer, you know, I says about these things, he says, go down to the OPA and ask them what it's worth. Office of, what was it, price, something other than. Anyway, I did, and they said I could get $150 for it. So he said to me, he asked anyone who was interested in the refrigerator to put their name in the hat, you know, in the bag or a box, whatever it was. And the name he pulled out got the refrigerator for $150.
The same thing with the washing machine.
And the washing machine
With
also,
the
you know, the
ringer
ringer
on
on the top. But
Anyway.
a lot of the men from the plant at Cynthiana were very
They kept bidding.
nice.
They
They
kept
kept
bidding up.
bidding, they kept bidding.
Prices up. And then they also bought me
A sheep trailer.
A sheep trailer.
So we could take a couple
So
things
we
home.
could take some of the stuff we wanted to save and travel home with it. Yeah, they were very good.
So you came home to Davison Mill.
So we brought.
I came home to my
She
mother,
came
and Dave
back to
went
mother,
into the
and I
army.
went to the army.
The army he couldn't miss.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyway, when I got out of the Army, we then decided to buy it. My father had died while I was in the Army, and my sister was living here, and she didn't care for the place. She didn't want to live in the country. So I bought her share of the farm, and we came out here. And
Been here ever since.
yeah, I went to, for a while I was working, I worked here, I went to work for Squibbs. I had you know, industrial experience, so I started up the streptomycin plant at Squibb. It was in the laboratory stage, and I started up the pilot plant, and then ran the Squibb streptomycin extraction purification plant for a while, and then I went from there to Hayden Chemical, where I was in penicillin. Then Hayden Chemical sold their property.
That was in Dutch Neck?
It was right near
Penn's
Princeton.
Neck?
Near
No,
Princeton.
Penn's Neck.
Princeton.
Yeah.
No, not Dutch Neck. Princeton. It was on US 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Penn's Neck.
right.
Penn's Neck is more like it.
So when they sold their plant, I was at that time we would one of the procedures in extracting was ion exchange. So I started a lab here, where we had some chicken coops, and I street instead of the water, you know, purifying water by distillation, you purify it by ion exchange. You get a pure water. And while I was doing that, since I was working by myself, I began to substitute teach because I enjoyed that. And then in New Brunswick, they offered me. They had a physics teacher who wasn't happy. They were happy with, so they asked me if I'd take over the physics classes. So I did so. I took over. I started. I was teaching physics there, and this was shortly after Sputnik in 1957. So the National Science Foundation began to design new courses in physics and math, and, you know, to try to catch up with, and I took a summer course in the new physics at Oak Ridge in Tennessee at the
Atom bomb.
huh?
At the atom
Well,
bomb.
where the plant is, at
Oh,
the,
yeah.
and then Rutgers began to run a summer session for high school physics teachers to teach them new physics, and they asked me to be on the staff. So every summer, for 6 summers, I was working at Rutgers, teaching high school physics teachers, and then I got Columbia University got a contract to do this in India, so they asked me if I would join the staff. So I spent 3 summers teaching Indian high school physics teachers, which was an interesting experience, a real interesting experience. And when I retired, I don't know how I had time to go to work every day.
We all say
I
that.
forgot to mention, I did work for 30 years in the Monmouth Junction Post Office.
Right.
That's right.
Millie, did Kip Emmons ever share any of, like his dad's store is where the post office was, and then it was over in Leicester store, and
Yes.
He was, I don't think he was ever really interested. You know, when I started there, that store, that place, was, there was no heat. I don't know how many times I worked in my coat and hat and gloves. There was no bathroom facilities.
That was the one by the train station?
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And every once in a while, I'd go down to the basement and I'd find some old shades, lamp shades and things. He didn't want them and he could care less. He'd throw them out. And he said I could have them. And oh, by the way, I have been trying to give some artifacts to the so-called Weatherhill Museum. You'd be surprised how impossible that is.
well, it's kind of because some artifacts have been stolen from other places. And in fact, at one of our meetings, this was brought up.
I don't have anything, you know, that precious. I have a milk bottle from Springbrook Dairy. I have a milk bottle from Braxton up here, and I have a milk bottle from Shoop. And I figure it's part of the history of Monmouth Junction or South Brunswick.
We have some of them too.
I know, so, I mean, but it's very difficult to give it to anyone.
But they have a map that's, what kind of texture was that, Butch?
I saw it, but I haven't.
And-
really-
Kathy Thorpe's very reluctant to even put it anywhere outside of the municipal building because things kind of disappear over there. What they're hoping is that Weatherhill will become the museum and that they're able to do that over there. So just hold on to
Yeah,
it.
hold on
Well,
to it.
when you talked about Mr. Emmons, I have his bookkeeping system.
Wow,
And
that would be
that's
interesting.
something, and there are names in there
Mhm.
who you would probably
Right,
recognize.
he was very good,
It's a very funny system.
but he was very good to people. And
And,
he let
I
them
took-
pay
so
pay
I-
when they had the money.
Keith didn't want it, he didn't want it, so I took it home and I thought, you know, someday somebody will,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't really want it, I have it down in the basement.
Who was this told us that they were up cleaning upstairs with Kip and they found boots with wooden soles and heels?
Really?
One of the people we interviewed. He was cleaning,
Wooden soles and heels.
Kip was cleaning,
yes,
I mean, he
Melanie.
was throwing out.
Probably.
Here.
Yeah, she was Kip's assistant.
Oh,
Yes,
you see
I
that?
remember.
You see that newel post right here? No, at the beginning of the stairs?
The first post, yeah.
This one?
Yes.
It's
That's a
chip-
chestnut newel post.
That he threw out.
No, you know what was his name? Was his name Bosenberry who
Yeah,
lived next
Mr.
door?
Bosenberry, Louis,
Yeah, and what
yeah.
they knocked the house down? Okay. So I said to Rob, watch the store. I'm going over to see what they're doing. The bulldozer was there. And I see them knocking down that beautiful staircase with the newel posts. You know, there were two of them. There was one on the top and one on the bottom. And I was able to grab one. I grabbed that one. And Mr. Steinackel was very pleased to put it in for me. He had appreciation for these kind of things.
Well, Mr. Steinackel built this living room.
Yeah, the whole living
And
room.
we designed it. It was like you put the cedar, you know, you put on the outside on which you put the weatherboard. So we got twice as much as we needed. And I took the better ones, and we, you know, I put them on horses and polished them up, and we used the inside cedar.
That's beautiful.
And then he went out and found the big 12 by 12s and had them milled to put the ceiling up. And he did a beautiful job here. And it was,
Well, anyway, I thought it was just terrible to see that lovely he had a beautiful staircase down in that house. You know, just wound out.
I often wonder who owned that before the Bosenberries. See, no one
The only
knows.
time, the whole time I was there, he lived, he lived there alone.
Yeah.
there are a lot of old houses.
He had the
there.
old round hat on, right? The old,
Well, you
There's
know,
corncob pipe.
you know that house, what was that one on the corner where they found an oven?
Zimmerman?
In the Zimmerman house. He was
He broke
fixing
the
up the kitchen, he broke through a wall, he found
fireplace with
fireplace
things
in there
hanging.
with a pot holder, you know, a swinging pot holder in that fireplace. A lot of old places here.
That's one of the 10 oldest, if not the oldest,
Yeah.
in Monmouth Junction.
I thought that,
How about Mrs. Pearson's house? The Pearson's house?
That's one of the 10 oldest.
Mr. Pearson used to meet the train, bring in the mail every day. Every day I got a weather report.
He was the township clerk.
And what's his name? He was the engineer on the train.
Mr. Stewart,
No.
Shonley?
Mr. Carlisle,
Huh?
Mr. Carlisle.
Carlisle, yeah.
Mr. Carlisle.
And
And
he
every
toot the
time
horn.
he toot the whistle or whatever it was when he went by the post office.
Now, was Susie born in South Brunswick?
Oh.
Susie was born, yes,
yes,
yes.
I was in the Army.
He was in the Army.
And I came home because Millie was ready to go to the hospital, and she was late. I had 1 week's leave. I had to call up and see if I could get an extension till she had to get castor oil and all kinds of stuff till they made it. And then Susie was born. My son was born in Louisville,
Yeah.
and
Well,
now my son Susie isn't married.
Right.
She lives in Trenton, and she's a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1978, she was Social Worker of the Year for the United States.
Mm-hmm. I would
Yeah.
believe that. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she was.
we flew to, she wanted,
Well, I
I
had
went
to-
with her to,
She had. I was.
to Los Angeles to get her award.
And then she
she
took you to
says,
Disney
she
World.
says, what, yeah, she says to me, we must go to Disney World. And she was so excited when we got to Disney World, and at the ticket office, they said, a senior citizen, 55 years and over, you know, has the reduced rate. She says, oh.
It was worth coming, huh?
Now she tells us that she's a member of ARP. It makes us feel a little older. Well, older. My son has 5 kids, and the two oldest boys, each has one has a little girl, and one has a little boy. So Millie goes around telling everybody that she's become the mother of a grandfather.
Well,
Well,
now Millie,
there are a lot of memories from the farm. We were not unhappy, and we didn't know we didn't have much until we grew up and
but
left.
you were happy.
And left,
That's what everyone tells us. We didn't
Yeah.
have much, but we were happy.
you know. But that's right, and we had no toys. I mean, here we had 3 girls, none of us had a doll. We just